I'm talking about Rolex again. Here's 10 Rolex watches people want, but they will never make, I think. So the first watch I don't think will ever come back is the GMT Master Coke. Every single year around Watches and Wonders, people begin speculating on whether this watch will come back or not. And I don't think it ever will. Especially now that Tudor has released the Black Bay 58 GMT with the black and red bezel. It feels like that request has been met in the Tudor, and it just won't be coming back for Rolex, especially while the Pepsi still exists, in my humble opinion. Now, I'm one of those people who every single year thinks the Coke is coming back. I'm one of those schmucks who says every year, this is the year it comes back. And I really think it makes a lot of sense. I think it matches the GMT branding more. Every single model in the GMT range has a color on one side of the bezel and black on the other, with the only exception being the red-blue. But every year I speculate, and every year I'm wrong with the Coke, so I'm just beginning to think it is never coming back. Watch it get re-released in 2025. I will die. I will die of embarrassment. Another one we love to speculate about, but I just don't see it happening, a red Submariner Date. Red is a color Rolex uses sparingly, only featured on the GMT BLRO bezel, and used occasionally on text like with the Daytona, Yachtmaster, and Sea Dweller. There is maybe an argument for the Coral Oyster Perpetual. But yeah, what I'm trying to say, red isn't their color. And for this reason, I don't think we will ever see a red Submariner Date. Now this. Oh yeah! Now this is a watch I would love to see again, the King Midas. Inspired by the Greek pantheon, the King Midas was carved from a single block of 18-karat gold. Gerald Genta design with a very simple dial layout, just hands, coronet, and Midas written along the bottom. Interestingly, the crown was placed on the left side of the watch as a nod to the Midas myth, where everything touched by his left hand turned to gold. This is just the mindful design that I long for and I would love to see again, but I don't think this will ever come back. Rolex seems to be leaning down the more professional side of the catalog, and for good reason. It is what people generally want from the brand. But man, do I have a soft spot for this watch. Also, P.S. if you've never seen the Midas box, this is what it looks like. Absolutely epic. I mean, the Paul Newman Daytona is the kingpin, and I wish with all my heart they'd release a stainless steel Daytona that looks like this, the dial layout, the sub-dials, but sadly, it's never coming back. Don't get me wrong, the modern Daytona is still awesome. It's actually the watch that I'm wearing right now. And we've had little glimpses and nods to the Paul Newman era. I'm thinking of the Le Mans white gold, or even something like the reference 116518LN yellow gold oyster flex. But something in stainless steel Paul Newman looking. The watch collecting community would lose their minds. Not that anyone would be able to get a hold of it at retail anyways, but it would just be cool. Oh, yes. This is my favorite Explorer II reference, the Steve McQueen 1655. Now, there are remnants of this still in the Explorer II, but I'd love to see a modern return to this reference. 40mm over 42mm, those bezel markings, dial layout. I just love this reference. I don't think we'll ever see a return to this dial layout or this size, sadly. If the vintage models were significantly cheaper, I'd be interested, but I need to labor on the word significantly. Okay, so vintage collectors will know this one. The Dato-Compax is one of the most un-Rolex Rolexes ever made. This is from a time where Rolex was still working out its DNA and who they were and who they were going to be in the watch space. This barely looks like a Rolex with a 12 o'clock and the coronet and logo below, date around the minute track, and chronograph subdials. This reminds me a bit more of a vintage Longines than a vintage Rolex. Released in 1947, the Dato-Compax was the brand's first triple calendar chronograph with a water-resistant oyster case. I just love seeing different stuff like this, and I'd love to see a triple calendar enter the fold again. They'd have the historical premise for it, but I just don't ever see this happening. Okay, I know so many collectors have a funny thing about quartz, but how can you not have a soft spot for the Oysterquartz? Shamelessly 70s, 80s looking, these are also pretty rare to find on the secondary market. Although they were produced for about 25 years, it is estimated that they sold fewer than 25,000 units. These were large for the time at 39mm and available as the Oysterquartz Date or Datejust. Nowadays, Rolex's entire catalog is mechanical, and I just don't see that changing. But who knows, with the cost of living and the current economic state in a lot of the Western world, it could be an interesting play to add in an entry-level quartz. I don't see it happening, but who knows? Now, I would have thought this was an impossibility before the left-hand drive GMT Master 2. I never thought Rolex would do a left-hand drive, having to create an entirely new case for a watch that won't sell as well, but here we are. I'd honestly love to see them do more left-hand drive watches. I'd love to see the Rolex interpretation of the Pelagus LHD. I think the Submariner would be best, but if they were going to do it, I bet they would do it on a Sea Dweller. I don't know why, I just feel like it would be a Sea Dweller. I have no explanation for it other than that would be my hunch. And it would be less popular than the Submariner, but Switzerland just does weird stuff like that. So... And finally, I just wish Rolex would make weird experimental stuff again. Things like the Space Dweller, which was just an Explorer with Space Dweller written on it instead and released only in the Japanese market after the NASA Goodwill tour. Okay, maybe that's not the best example because it really was just an Explorer with Space Dweller written on it, but I still just wish they would get a bit more experimental and just do weird stuff sometimes. I think some of the best work comes out of experimentation, and Rolex is in this unique position where whatever they make, people are going to want it and they're going to buy it. Although, credit where credit is due, Rolex have been a lot more experimental these past few years with models like the Emoji Date, which neither tells the day nor the date. The Celebration Oyster Perpetual, which I've accepted my AD is never going to allocate to me, but let a girl dream. And even weird watches like the left-hand drive GMT. I don't think anyone saw this coming. I don't think this was on anyone's bingo card. But I'd love to see them creating entirely new lines again, like they did with the Sky Dweller. I have a hunch something new is coming though, especially with the discontinuation of 2 entire lines in the Milgauss and the Yachtmaster 2. Maybe something new is on the way, and I will be here for it. I think too many brands have been resting on their laurels, resting on their back catalog, and making reissues for a bit too long now. With Rolex being the industry leader, I think it'd be so interesting if they created something new and see what kind of effect that would have over the larger watch market. But anyways, I am rambling. What kind of watches would you like to see Rolex make? Something from the back catalog? Something entirely new? Let me know in those comments down below. Don't forget to do all those algorithm things. Feed the YouTube algorithm gods. Like, comment, subscribe. And now, let's thank the gorgeous, fabulous, wonderful Pope tier patrons. Whew, I did that one as fast as I could because my camera is threatening to die. So if it dies right now, I'm so sorry. I hope it doesn't. Thank you to the fabulous names written on the screen. I know where the new names are now. They're on this side. So thank you to the newest Pope tier patrons. Thank you to the oldest Pope tier patrons. And thank you to all patrons. You guys keep the lights on here at Gringa HQ. You keep this channel going. And I'm so glad you enjoy my work. I hope you keep enjoying this channel. Okay, bye guys.